Welcome back to 20 Side Adventures. My name's Ryan. This is Champion 301, where we're going to dive into the various feats available to the champion and some distinct paths to follow based on the causes that you have chosen. As always, if you like what we do here on the channel, please give a like and subscribe down below. Leave a comment. It is the easiest way to support the channel, and I always appreciate chatting with you folks. With no further ado, let's get into Champion 301. Here we are, guys, Archives of Nethys. This is for Champion 301, and we're going to be going over some of the feat selections and ways to build out your champion. Just going down the list, Agile Shield Grip. I've mentioned this in my Guardian video. I'm not a big fan. Getting the Agile trait for a reduction in damage on your shield punch just really isn't worth it to me, in my opinion. One thing you'll find in the level 1 feats for the champion is they all have a feat that augments their reaction, and this could be a pretty good take. Obviously, you have to take the one for your specific type. However, I want to do all those together, so we're going to jump around here a little bit. Defensive Advance is a fantastic take. For the champion, it gives you 3 actions for the cost of 2, so you get a move, a raise shield, and a strike for a 2-action cost. Deity's Domain gives you the first level domain spell from a domain in the deity that you have chosen. Desperate Prayer is going to give you a free refocus as a free action, I believe. Yep, free action, so you can get a focus point back in the midst of a fight, which could be pretty powerful if you have leaned very heavily into having a wide repertoire of focus spells. Everstand Stance lets you fight two-handed with a shield, which is dumb in my opinion. Dueling shields from medieval history notwithstanding, not a fan of the take. Faithful Steed, if you want to be playing that kind of traditional paladin-like character with a mount, Faithful Steed is the route to go. The interesting thing about this is it gives your steed the holy or unholy trait, so some successive choices will also continue to augment that divine status of your mount if you're wanting to play the mounted paladin. Splinter Faith is interesting because it lets you get a domain that your deity would not normally have, and you get to kind of play this pseudo heretical follower of your deity. The problem I have with it on the champion versus the cleric is it doesn't really give you anything. It adds the domain repertoire to your choices, but then you still have to go back up here and grab the deity's domain to actually gain a tangible benefit on the champion, where at least in the cleric, you get some domain stuff just built in from your class. So it's a big feat take on the champion to be able to go down that route. So while I really like it thematically, it's very expensive just to get a level 1 domain spell. So don't think it's a great option for the champion. Has some really cool options, however, for the cleric. All right, so how can you change your cause? So Brilliant Flash for the Grandeur. This also adds the off-guard condition to anyone who's caught by the Flash of Grandeur. So that's pretty cool. Iron Repercussions from Obedience. This lets you choose if you're dealing normal damage or persistent damage. So if they refuse to kneel, being able to tack on persistent damage to just get further ticks is a pretty good take. Nimble Reprisal, this is for the Justice cause. This is going to let you take a step to be in range to do your Retributive Strike. So that's going to just give you more options for Retributive Strike and being able to reach people that are kind of further out in your aura. Ongoing Selfishness for the Desecration cause. This keeps the damage resistance. So rather than the damage resistance just applying to the attack that triggered your reaction, it's now to all attacks from that creature for the remainder of the round. Now that resistance does reduce a little bit, but if you're fighting a single big bad guy and you have their attention, it's a good way to just tank for your party and keep that damage low. Unimpeded Step, this is for liberation, and this is going to let them step through difficult terrain or other terrain obstacles. Vicious Vengeance for iniquity, and this gives a damage bonus on top of the damage you're already dealing, but it doesn't increase the damage you're taking. So this is a good way to start to lean in and get that reaction balancing more in your favor, and then that should also apply on the later AoE version of it as well. Weight of Guilt for the redemption. This gives you an option of using Enfeebled or Stupefied, which is pretty good because Enfeebled against a primary casting bad guy really isn't going to matter to them. But now if they get Stupefied too and they have a DC flat check to even cast their spells, that's pretty strong. Heading into level 2, you have Conceited Mindset. This is for Tenets of Evil, so this is pretty much if you're taking any of the unholy ones. I don't think this got updated with Remaster, but you get a +2 bonus to save from mental effects if it's coming from a good source, and if you succeed, you critically succeed instead. This, however, does have the downside is if you fail, you critically fail instead. So that's a pretty weird trade-off to me. I don't think I would be too interested in it. Devoted Guardian, you can add your bonus to those around you when you have your shield raised. Divine Grace, you get a reaction to simply give yourself a +2 to a save that you are about to make. Doesn't matter what kind, you just can always give yourself a +2. The problem I have with this, the champion's reactions are pretty good for helping out your team. I don't know if I want to use those up for myself. Divine Health, this is kind of the classic D&D way to get yourself to be resistant to disease and poison. Also, those within your aura get to benefit from this bonus, though not quite as highly. You get a +2, and then people in your aura get a +1. Oaths are a unique feat you can take on the champion. Oaths add an additional tenet to your code. You can usually only have one feat with this trait, so if you're taking an oath, you have to choose it very wisely. Oath of the Avenger allows you to use lay on hands offensively against others that are not just undead. Instead of dealing vitality damage, you now deal spirit damage, and you can use it against anyone that has triggered your reaction previously. I'm not a big fan of using lay on hands offensively to begin with, so giving you more options with it isn't something I would be really excited about. But if you're building into using lay on hands a lot, it may be for you. Oath of the Defender. Every morning during your daily preparation, you choose Aberrations, Celestials, Dragons, Fiends, or Undead, with some caveats that if you're holy, you can't choose Celestials, and if you're unholy, you can't choose Fiends. So now everyone in your aura, after choosing this at your daily preparation, is going to get a resistance 2 to damage, and this will scale with your level. And this also increases the resistance when you use your champion's reaction by 5. Oath of the Slayer. Now this is if you want to get a little bit more damage. This is basically the same thing. You choose the type of creature during your daily preparation, and then your strikes and devotion spells deal an additional 1 spirit damage to the creature, and this increases as you level up. And this damage doubles on your next turn if that creature triggered your reaction in the previous round. Reliable Squire, if you want to be a little better at aid, another not great feature from last wall. Resilient Mind, you gain a +1 bonus to saves against mental effects, +2 if it comes from undead. I mean, maybe if you're in a super undead heavy campaign, might be worth having just a little bit of a bump, but I think there's better things to take at 2. At 4, we have Accelerating Touch. This is going to augment Lay on Hands, and when you use it, the target gains a +10 movement speed, so on yourself to kind of offset maybe the speed reduction from your armor, and you get a little bit of healing. That could be pretty cool. Acclimated Mount comes from Battlecry, so this is a pretty new one. This allows your mount to be able to navigate specific types of difficult terrain, mountains, plains, sky, swamp, etc. And you can change that each day during your daily preparation so you can better suit your mount for the fight ahead and being able to move through difficult terrain with ease. Aura of Courage, so this is going to augment your aura. Whenever you become frightened, you automatically reduce the condition by 1. If you're frightened 1, it doesn't affect you at all. If you're frightened 2, it's now frightened 1, and at the end of your turn it reduces, so this really pulls fear down. And this is another one, at the end of your turn, each ally in your aura reduces their frightened condition. So it's on your turn, not theirs, plus they'll get it on their turn. So this is going to quickly eat away the frightened condition, and since it's coming at the end of your turn, depending on when you are at in the aura, they may not even get the effects of fear on them. So this is a pretty strong option. Aura of Despair for the unholy version of it. All enemies in your aura take a -1 penalty when they're saving against fear, and fear cannot be reduced beyond 1 in your aura. So if you're leaning into causing fear and you're an unholy champion, that's pretty robust. One of the best options in the game is Dirge of Doom for the Bard because it just keeps a persistent level 1 fear up. And here you're kind of being able to do that as a champion as well. Cruelty augments Touch of the Void, and this adds the Enfeeble debuff to it. Perhaps a little bit more of an option than I think the Lay on Hands gives, but overall, I'm not a big fan of using those touch spells offensively. Everstand Strike would be super cool if you weren't having to use a shield two-handed, because when you strike with your shield, you get to raise it. And just having to use a shield two-handed is Inspiring Resilience. This is another reaction from Knights of Last Wall. This is triggered when at least one creature becomes the target of a spell or an effect, emotion, fear, or mental trait that allows a saving throw, and you haven't rolled the save yet. All allies within 30 feet gain a +1 circumstance bonus to the will save and a +2 if it originated from the undead. So you just give everyone a bonus to a save effect. I mean, could be kind of useful. Again, you have to be in a campaign where mental effect undead is just happening all the time. This was kind of a weird one for me, Irazoko's Tattoo. This applies to pretty much any casting class, but you have to be an expert in Arcana or Occultism, so I feel not having religion as a choice here makes this a really weird take for the champion. And then once per day, you can spend 3 actions to gain a focus point back mid-combat. I would rather just take the level 1 free option to just get one as a free action. I feel that would be much more beneficial. Nox Sense, this is another fantastic from Knights of Lastwall. You're kind of noticing a trend. I'm just kind of shitting on Knights of Lastwall throughout all of this. I just don't find most of the feats from this book that useful. And I understand they're very niche for the story that's happening in there, but I am just not a fan. But essentially, you get to make a strike against a confused ally. This strike is non-lethal, and it knocks some sense into them so they can get out of the confused state. If you're in a campaign where confusion is happening to you guys a lot, it might be worth the take, but I just don't see it. Light of Revelation gives you access to that spell, which if you're the Grandeur champion, no point in taking it. It's an okay focus spell. If you're fighting a lot of things that are invisible or hidden, it might be worthwhile to you. Mercy, this is a holdover idea from Paladin and previous editions and from other games, but essentially you get the option to counteract negative debuffs that are on your party. You have to take Mercy of Body, Grace, or Mind, so you can only choose one, but you can take it multiple times if you want to be able to reduce other things from Mercy. You should also note that when you use a Mercy, it does increase the actions from 1 to 2. But if you're really wanting to lean in and be that healing champion, Mercy is a fantastic take. Sacral Lord is pretty interesting. It is rare and it's also available to the Oracle. You have to be trained in occultism or religion, but essentially you link yourself to the land. You become the land becomes you.
Have you found the secret that I have lost?
Yes. You and the land are one.
You get bonuses to interacting with creatures from this area, such as celestial fiends, fays, etc. There's also the story effect that your mood affects the land. So if you're in a Kingmaker game, for example, Sacral Lord could be pretty cool. Security lets you alter the Shield of Spirits. It becomes 2 actions and you may cast it on a single target and it persists for 1 minute, essentially giving them the bonus to AC and dealing that damage only when it comes into that individual person. In my current game, where we have a GM NPC and I'm a Guardian, our champion has taken this and puts it on the Guardian who's taunting, and the spirit damage just gets poured out on the enemies from this. So if you have a way to make sure one person is getting hit all the time, such as a Guardian with taunt, security is a fantastic take. Sunblade, something from Lastwall that I don't totally hate, but this gives you a focus spell that lets you do a ranged ray attack from your sword and shoot out a beam of light. It'll deal 1d4 fire damage. If they're unholy, it'll also do 1d4 good damage. If they're undead, it'll do an additional 1d4 vitality, and it does scale up as you level, but it is just d4s, and it's 2 actions and a focus spell, so it's okay, it's thematic. I don't think I would spend a level 4 feat on it. Corrupted Shield, you have had to have taken the Divine Shield ally, and you have to have an unholy cause. But when you use your shield block to stop melee attacks, the shield does some damage back. And then if the shield breaks, it does double the damage back, and this does scale as you level up. So this could be a good way if you're doing a lot of shield blocks to dish out some void damage while you're doing it. Expanded Aura lets you increase that aura up to 30 feet. Now, this is 1 action to do it, so you do have to keep that in mind. You have to keep sustaining that, increased aura size, but in certain situations where you just need Shield of Spirits to impact more people, raise your shield with Shield of Spirits, put the expanded aura down, get a really good burst from it. And then at level 10, it lasts for 1 minute. So 1 action to put it up, and it's basically a stance. If you are working within your aura for a lot of abilities, this could be a really strong take. Invigorating Mercy, if you're going down the Mercy path, this lets you increase what you use your counteracts against. Next, we have Litanies. Litanies are a very interesting take. And these are, again, very specific, but I think if you're using them in the right campaign, they're super strong. Litany against Wrath. You are reading a litany that rails against the wrathful actions of others and punishing. It is important to realize that if you're using litanies and you're taking a wide variety of them, they don't stack. Once you use one, they're immune to all of your other potential litanies for 1 minute. They're going to make a basic will save, they're going to make a will save against your class DC. On a critical success, nothing happens. On a success, the first time they target someone and use an action that deals damage on a creature that isn't unholy, so this doesn't work if it's a creature that is holy. So you have to either target unaligned or unholy creatures, but they will take 3d6 spirit damage. If they failed, each time they use an action that deals damage, they're going to be taking 3d6 spirit damage for that whole round. And if they critical fail, they become enfeebled 2. And then each time it uses an action, they take double the damage on the 3d6. So a critical fail on this is devastating. And this does heighten with you as a focus spell. Loyal Warhorse, you're just increasing some of your faithful steed options. This makes it so your Warhorse never turns up, even when magically compelled to do so. Reactive Strike, pretty basic there. You get Reactive Strikes. Again, as a champion, I don't know if I would take that because I have a lot of things to be using my reactions for. Shield Wall, if you're looking to add a little bit more cover AC to someone else who's using shield, maybe you're fighting alongside a Guardian, this could be pretty worthwhile. Shield Warden, this lets you use your shield block reaction to cover an ally. Smite, this is going to give you a little bit more damage, so if you want to be a little bit more of an aggressive champion, Smite be something in your repertoire you want to take. You designate one enemy you can see until the start of your next turn, and your strikes against that enemy gain +3 bonus to damage. Increase to +4 if you have master proficiency in your weapons. If you are holy or unholy, the target has the opposite trait. The bonus is increased to +4, +6 if you're a master. So a pretty good way to add just some extra damage. Also, if the target takes hostile action against you or an allies before your next turn, the duration extends on that enemy until the next turn. So once you smite them, as long as they keep being aggressive, you don't have to keep putting it up there, and you can deal that continual additional damage. Advanced Deities Domain, this is going to let you get the Advanced Deity spell. Faithful Stride, this is for your steed, and this lets your steed move across terrain it normally wouldn't be able to, such as water. Greater Cruelty, this is just augmenting the evil lay on hands, where you can now change from enfeebled to clumsy or stupefied. Greater Mercy is giving you more options for the mercy you'd previously taken. And Greater Security is boosting the security for what you put on them, where basically you can use your raised shield to affect the damage coming in from someone you put security on. Heal Mount lets you heal your mount, just as it says. Impassable Wall Stance, you have to enter this stance, but basically when you do an attack of opportunity or a reactive strike, you get to disrupt move actions as well, so they can't move away from you. Quick Shield Block gives you a reaction only for shield block. So if you're doing a lot of shield blocking, could be pretty good to have an extra reaction for your champion. Sacrificial Armor, I do not like this reaction. I think these are just not a good choice, that when you get to absorb some damage, but you break your armor. Breaking your armor just is never a good call in my opinion. Second Blessing is pretty cool. So you can take a second blessing from your class. So instead, if you took armaments, you could now take shield or the Swift Stride. So you have 2 out of the 3 total options for your champion, and that can be pretty cool. Sense Holiness and Sense Unholiness is Detect Evil and Detect Good from the good old days. Elucidating Mercy, so if you're continuing down that mercy path, this is going to let you counteract Confused or Stupefied. Holy Light, this is another fantastic one from Night's Wall. I'm kidding, all the ones from Night's Wall are terrible. Level 10 feet, 2 actions, and you get to dazzle any evil creature that can witness you with a will save. That's a basic will save. Okay, at level 10, you can AoE dazzle some stuff for 1 round, so they get a, what's that, a 10% miss chance? As a level 10 feat and a 2 action expenditure, this sounds so cool because you become this big, radiant beacon of light, and I'm just let down by the effect. So I don't like pretty much anything from Knights of Last Wall. I think I'm done railing against that in this particular video, but everything from Knights of Last Wall has such a cool concept, and then you read the rules and you're like, oh, this really isn't actually. Imposing Destrier just keeps leveling up your mount. Litany against Sloth. This is really interesting if you're fighting Sloth demons. They take automatically 1 worse, so really good against fighting those. And essentially you get to impose slowed on your enemies. On a critical success, nothing happens. Success, they don't get the reactions. Failure, they're slowed for 1 round. And if they critically fail, they are slowed 2 for 1 round. So pretty decent way to just shut down a particular creature. So Litany of Self-Interest is very interesting, and it might almost be better placed on your allies instead of enemies, but you can choose to automatically fail it, or you can roll if it's against an enemy, but you get a +2 bonus on attack rolls, perception checks, saving throws, and skill checks. With the caveat is you can't aid other creatures, and no one else counts as an ally, so you're going to lose flanks, benefits of spells that specifically call you out as an ally, etc., etc. But if you want to give someone in your group a +2 to just go out there and be a little bit better, you absolutely can, and there's nothing that prevents you from self-casting it if you want to give yourself that +2 bonus for the next round as the selfish aligned champion. Radiant Armaments, this increases your Blessed Armament and gives you some more options on the runes available to you. Resilient Touch is just continuing down that path of making lay on hands better. +1 status bonus to saving throws until the end of their next turn. Shield of Reckoning, this is another reaction. You have to be a Shield Warden, have to have the Blessed Shield, and it affects your champion's reaction. Lots of prerequisites, and this will only happen if they qualify for both a shield block and your champion's reaction, which essentially means you then grant both of them to them. So you shield block for your ally, and you grant them your champion's reaction. So you're just really shutting down that damage that's coming into your ally. So Spectral Advance gives you a focus spell, the Spectral Advance Devotion spell, which when used, it's a 1 or 2 action, and you get to take that many strides, and you do not trigger attacks of opportunity, and you get to ignore difficult terrain. Affliction Mercy, again, this is just leaning into mercies, and you get to use them. You get to use the counteract of your mercy against afflictions such as curses, diseases, and poisons. Amplifying Touch, and if you've been leaning into all of the other things that come from lay on hands, such as the +1 to saves, you can now add a +1 bonus to the person's attack, and they will deal an additional spirit damage on that strike until the end of their next turn. Aura of Faith, this allows you to grant the holy or unholy trait, depending on which you're rocking, to all of your allies in the aura. So if you're fighting against opposite aligned creatures, this is a good way to augment the whole party. Blade of Justice requires Tenets of Good. So this is a 2 action for a strike, and the strike deals 2 extra weapon damage die if the target you strike is unholy. So if you're fighting something that's unholy, you get 2 extra weapon die. And then if you're striking someone who is not unholy, you can convert all the damage into spirit damage instead of physical. And then specifically for the Paladin, so this is some older verbiage in here still, but if you're getting any benefits to Retributive Strike, such as Divine Smite, you can do that with your Blade of Justice. Blessed Counterstrike, so this is 1 action, requires an enemy to have triggered your champion's reaction. So this one gives you 1 extra damage die versus the 2 from above, and it has to be against someone who has triggered your reaction in the last round. But additionally, they gain weakness to all strikes that come from your allies equal to half your level for the next turn. So that's a pretty robust just here. You have a weakness to these guys hitting you. It's a fantastic way to team up and deal some extra damage. Be aware that this does have the Flourish trait, so you may not be able to use some other Flourish activities. Champion Sacrifice, this gives you a devotion spell that allows you to take the effect for your ally instead of yourself as a reaction. Devoted Focus, when you refocus, you get all of your focus points back instead of just the one. So if you're, again, leaning into using lots of focus spells, this could be pretty worthwhile. Divine Wall, as long as you're wielding a shield, all of the terrain around you becomes different. Enforce Oath is going to require you to have taken something with the Oath trait before. But when you use the Oath, you're going to get a variety of extra bonuses, +1 to your AC, and a +1 bonus on attack rolls against the chosen creature. However, things not affected by this, you're going to be taking a -1 to AC and attacks to hit things not the focus of your own. This is very reminiscent of Smite from 1st edition Paladin. Gruesome Strike, this is for the unholy guys, so Desecration, Iniquity, and Obedience. You make a strike against creatures that triggered your champion's reaction. If you hit, double the extra damage from the target from your reaction, so those +1 and +2 damages, they're going to get doubled. They also have to make a Fortitude save or be drained. That's pretty impressive, because drained can be pretty nasty. Lasting Doubt, this is only for the Redeemer, so now we're going to see how to boost up some of these even further. After being enfeebled 2 by your Glimpse of Redemption, foe is enfeebled 1 for 1 minute. So rather than just being enfeebled for that next round, it persists. If you have Weight of Guilt, after being stupefied 2, they can become stupefied 1. Now this does pass if they pass the flat check on the stupefied, but if you took the first one, you might as well take this one and get the most bang for your buck. Liberating Stride, this is for the Liberator cause, and this allows them to take a stride at half their speed instead of just the step. Miraculous Intervention, this is another reaction from last wall. This is if an adjacent fiend or undead attempts to use a reaction, you can attempt to use this reaction to disrupt their reaction. If they're lower level, it just happens. If they're higher level, you have to make an attack. Okay, that one's not terrible. I don't know at level 12 I'd really want it, but again, if you're fighting lots of undead, could be pretty useful. Necromantic Deflection. This gives your shield AC bonus to save against necromancy spells, and you can shield block necromantic spells that deal damage to you, even if it isn't physical damage. Okay, again, very niche, might be good in a specific instance. Pale Horse is going to let your horse get some resistance to a specific type of damage, as well as deal some damage if they get hit. Steed Toppling Strike, it's a flourish, single action. This is from Battlecry, so even if you are a champion aficionado, you may not have caught this, but you use Command Animal for your steed to strike someone that has been affected by your champion's reaction. They deal an extra die of weapon damage, and knock the target prone if they hit. So just a free knock prone is pretty solid. Aura of Determination, this gives you a +1 saving throw against mental, morph, and polymorph effects. I don't know if I'd spend the level 14 on that unless it was a pretty reoccurring thing in your campaign. Aura of Life, 5 resistance to void and a +1 save against void effects. That one could be pretty solid, specifically if you are fighting things in the void sphere, so lots of undead. Aura of Preservation, this requires the Esoteric Oath, +1 status to fortitude and will saves against aberrations, and also a +1 against polymorph, morph, and other mental effects. So, again, if you're fighting aberrations, this one could be pretty worthwhile. If you're not, maybe not. Aura of Righteousness, if you're fighting lots of unholy, you're going to get 5 resistance to unholy spells, strikes, and effects. If a teleportation effect would teleport an unholy creature out of your aura, you can attempt to counteract it. So a lot of fiends and demons get to teleport around to escape. This is a great way of shutting that down. Aura of Vengeance, you have to have the Vengeful Oath. When you use Retributive Strike, your allies may strike and take only a -2 penalty instead of 5. Divine Reflexes gives you an additional champion's reaction, which champions use lots of reactions, so that could be pretty cool. Exalted Greatness just increases the exalted benefit cause you have taken. I'm not going to go through each of them here, but if you just want to keep leaning into making your cause better, that's where to do it. This is an add-on to Sacrificial Armor. I'm still just not a fan of it. It does, however, let you reduce a double damage to a single damage, but again, your armor's breaking. I just don't think it's worth it. Litany of Depravity. This is another litany, and this just makes people weakness 7 to So if you've got the aura that lets your party deal unholy damage, you make this enemy weak for the next round to weakness 7. That's a lot of damage that could stack up. Litany of Righteousness is the same, but it is for holy. And again, if you're using that aura that gives all of your allies the holy damage, you make them weak 7 to unholy, and then you just go to Sacral Monarch is the increase of Sacral Lords. This basically makes you king of the land.
My knights have fought my causes. Now, my brother, I shall be king.
You can cast Banishment or Inevitable Disaster as an innate divine spell once per day. Very unique, very niche, but pretty. Wormbane Aura. So this is going to grant everyone in your aura a resistance equal to your charisma modifier to acid, cold, electricity, fire, and poison. So that's just 5 damage types that you're giving your whole party resistance to as long as they're in your aura. And if you're taking the expanded aura, that's a 30-foot aura, so that's pretty robust. Then if the source of one of these comes from Dragon's Breath, it increases to half your level rather than just your charisma mod. So that one is a pretty solid all-around take. Auspicious Mount, this just continues to increase your mount's abilities and makes them somewhat of a holy creature. So they can become a celestial, a fiend, or a monitor and give them, a lot of cool extra abilities. Instrument of Slaughter, so this is for the unholy aligned causes. When you critically hit a foe and you have blessed armaments, that strike has extra damage from your champion's reaction. They also take it as a persistent bleed damage equal to 2 of your weapon damage dice. So if you're using a D12 weapon, they've now got 2d12 persistent damage. Instrument of Zeal, this is for the other side of the coin, for the holy or the unaligned. And whenever you critically hit an enemy with Blessed Counterstrike or Retributive Strike, your attack deals an extra damage die, and the target is slowed 1. Shield of Grace lets you continue to increase your Shield Warden ability, so as well as taking some of the damage on the shield for your ally, you get to take half the damage as well, so you're just further reducing the damage they're taking. Celestial and Fiendish Form lets you kind of take on aspects of your deity's divine realm. You can gain fly speed, dark vision, and you get to look like a cool angel or demon. Rejuvenating Touch from Lay on Hands. This will also grant 10 temporary hit points for the next 10 rounds after you've Lay on Hands them. So you're just giving some reoccurring temporary healing. Retributive Focus, you had to have take Retributive Prayer. However, every time they trigger your reaction, you're getting a focus point back. So if you're using lots of focus spells, this is a fantastic way to just keep that pool regenerating. Swift Retribution, after you have used your champion's reaction, you get to be quickened for 1 round. You can only use it to move to or to strike the enemy that caused it, but still an extra action each round is pretty solid. Ultimate Mercy, this kind of like it sounds, is the ultimate of mercies, And what this will give you is the option to bring the dead back to life with your Lay on Hands. They have to have died within the last round, but you bring them back with 1 hit point and they are wounded 1. This doesn't count if it comes from disintegrate or death effects. Armament Paragon gives you some more choices for your weapon armament. Aura of Unbreakable Virtue. So level 20 Capstone feat here. I don't know how awesome this one really is, but a -1 status penalty to checks and DCs that target you or your allies. So I mean, it's basically just fear. And it's -2 if you've taken an oath against these creatures. For level 20, I'm not sure how much I really like that. Banishing Blow, this gives you a free action rider onto a shove or an athletics check. On a success, the target can't teleport or summon creatures for 1 minute. On a critical success, the target is also stunned 1 and can't teleport for 1 hour. So that's pretty cool. Also, this does not apply a multiple attack penalty when you use this. So if you're fighting lots of creatures that teleport, this could be a pretty good take. Celestial Mount, this makes your mount as super cool as possible. Everdistant Defense is a strange reaction where every square becomes 3 squares, so when you're taking a ranged attack, you just stretch out the time and space between you and inflict some range penalties on them. Fiendish Mount is making your mount a demon instead of a celestial. Sacred Defender, level 20 Capstone, you gain resistance 5 to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. If you're holy, this is increased to 10 against unholy creatures. And if you're unholy, it's increased to 10 against holy creatures. In addition, creatures and effects that roll a natural 20 on an attack roll against you don't improve their effect by 1 degree. So nat 20s just no longer affect you. And I think that's super cool. Even though it's very rare it'll come up, I love the thematics of that. Next up, we have Shield Paragon. This is if you took the Blessed Shield, and this makes your shield as super cool as possible. Your shield is just always raised. You never have to spend the action on it again, and if the shield is destroyed, it disappears into your deity's realm or one of its minions fixes it for you. You can spend 1 minute to infuse a different shield with your shield blessing, so if you're just burning through shields, you can do that. Now, however, only the true shield returns repaired. Other shields that get busted as you use substitutes, those don't get fixed by this. And then lastly, the Swift Paragon. This is for your capstone on Blessed Swiftness. Any allies that move within your aura no longer trigger reactions. In addition, you're permanently quickened. And you can use this action only to step or stride. And it does apply if you are mounted that your mount is permanently quickened. So you just get a free move action and your allies no longer trigger reactions in the aura, which is pretty cool. All right, guys, so those are all of the champion feats. You have feats that lean into your causes. You have some feats that lean into very specific things. If you want to be the healer champion, leaning into Lay on Hands and Mercies all the way down the tree gives you a ton of options to remove debuffs and heal up your party. If you want that mounted companion, clearly there's a feat tree for that and a lot of feats that make your mount as effective as possible. If you want to be more that wrathful, vengeful champion, there's definitely some feats to take there that are going to boost your damage potential, as well as give you some debuffs on the enemy to make sure you are dishing out the most amount of damage. And lastly, plenty of feats taken to augment your defensive and shield abilities if you want to be the protector champion. Well, that's everything for 301, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. What is your favorite champion feat? I'd love to hear about it. As always, if you like what we're doing here on the channel, please give a like and subscribe down below. It is always very much appreciated. I'm going to wish you a fantastic time on your 20-sided adventures. We'll catch you next time.